Folks, first off, I'm going to apologize in advance for the lack of uploads in the past week or so. I've been busy with some other stuff, and I've been putting some other stuff together that I'll be bringing that up later on. But for now, I wanted to do a quick little, because I haven't done one of these in a while. I wanted to do a quick little overview kind of thing on this portable thing. I actually want to do a couple of these overviews actually on a couple of things, but I figure I'd get this out of the way since it's the oldest of the bunch. Anyways, some of you might be familiar with this thing. This is the Sega Genesis Ultimate Portable Game Player. And it is a thing that comes built in with Sega Genesis / Mega Drive games and some other games as well. Let's get this thing out of the way. This is the box that it comes in. Wonderful, plain as shit box. The Sega Genesis Ultimate Portable Game Player thing. 80 built-in games. Only 40 of them are worth crap, as we'll find out later. Sorry if I spoiled it for anybody. As you can see here, the games advertised is Super Street Fighter 2, The New Challengers, Mega Man The Wily Wars, ooh, ah, and Sonic the Hedgehog 1 and 2. Now, AT games here, Sega Genesis, Super Street Fighter 2 logos. Inside here we have, Capcom's mug here. Some worthless copyright, UCP code. See here you have internet games download feature via SD card. SD card not included. Rechargeable battery included, which means you could take this and you could plug it with a USB thing. Yeah, that's the only way you could charge. Here it says the Ultimate Portable Game Player contains 37 classic Sega Genesis games and 3 Capcom games. As if those games are entirely different and not in fact all for the same console originally. Download and play more games in SD card. SD card is not included. Visit WEducate for additional game download, and it just shows you all the bits and pieces here and all that stuff. Ages 10 and plus. Don't toss it in a recycle bin. Packing must be kept since it contains important information. Well, I just kept the box and the instruction manual. Not suitable for children under 3 years, even though it says 10 plus. Anyways, packing includes the portable player, that would be this thing. The instruction manual, that would be this thing. A USB charging cable and a rechargeable battery. Warning, choking hazard, small parts. Because you could choke on a USB cable or something. Batteries should not be connected. Oh, not putting any batteries in this thing. It's just, anyways, you got a recycle sign. You got a flammable, no fire sign, and oh, I always wanted to do this. The sad onion. Ooh, ah. And the back it shows you the 40 games and Capcom games built in. You see it has, almost all the some of the Sonics. Sonic and Knuckles 2, 3, 4, Streets of Rage 1, 2, 3, Shadow Dancer, blah 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 blah. We're gonna skim through all of these, really fast in the later portion. Anyways, that's the box. I'm not doing an unboxing because it's already unboxed. It comes with a rather nifty instruction manual, which tells you all the bits and pieces here. How do I play the game? How do I switch back to the game menu? How do I play on the TV? Yes, you can play this thing on a TV. No, it does not come with a AV cable that you could plug to your telly. Doesn't work that way. It tells you how to put play games on your SD card, how to add games on your SD card. I'll tell you right now. The games they're referring to are your Sega Genesis ROMs, but they have to be in the bin format. If they're in the SMD, it won't recognize. So if you're going to look for Sega Genesis ROMs to download and install onto this, it needs to be bin format. Just letting you folks know. How do I charge my player? With the USB cable, and then it just gives you basic instructions and a basic overview of how to play each game, which is really useful if you've never played any of these games before. And then it gives you, so like I said, there's 80 games. 40 of them are Genesis games. The other 40 are your generic games, which don't really matter all that much. But again, we'll get to that later. Okay, so this is our portable Genesis player, otherwise known as Gopher, Firecore, or you know, it's been around a while. It's nothing new, but anyways, you got your little directional pad here, little circular knob. You got your menu button. You got your 6 buttons here, your XYZ, XYZ, ABC, your start button. Bottom here you have a jack for your headphones. You got your switch there. Nothing here, nothing there. Well, you got a little thing for our lanyard. You got your volume control here. You got your SD card slot there. You got your USB cable slot here, and you got your AV out thing. It doesn't come with a AV cable to plug to your television or your DVD player or whatever the case may be, but I do have one for my camcorder, and I've tried that and it works just fine. So anyways, I'm going to turn this on fast. Add games, that's how it works. And there are all your games. You got your Sega Genesis games. First 4 pages are classic Sega Genesis games. And then you got your other games that nobody cares about. And then you got the SD card, which I don't have put it into the moment, but yeah. So anyways, we're just gonna go through a game, I guess, fast. I'm gonna go with Super Street Fighter 2. Something I want to show you with Super Street Fighter 2. Let's bring up the volume just so you could get a good look. I don't know if you catch that, but it sounds like shit. Screen doesn't look too bad though. I don't know how all it turns out in the there you go. Nice game start. Okay, so here's the interesting thing about the ROM that they put in here. Sega. Balrog. Mike Bison. Yeah, they ended up using the Japanese version instead of the American version. I will attempt to play this side by side and failed miserably. You figure a D-pad like this would you'd be able to get a few good. The execution of moves would be a bit easy, but find this tends to stick a bit. Like I'm not a fantastic, but I like to think I'm pretty competent. I could pull off a fucking fireball or a dragon punch at whim. Anyways, yeah, it sounds like crap, and but the screen's not bad, I think. I don't know. Anyways, I'm gonna take a closer look at this thing, by which I mean I'm gonna plug it to the DVD recorder, and we'll look at some footage the proper way. Just a quick, just as a quick aside, I'm not going to go too crazy with the games and all that. Just going to show you like a quick 4 or 5 seconds of each game, and you know, the only, like, as far as the Genesis games go, you know, some of them are relatively familiar as fare, and for the rest of them, well, you know. So 40 games on the Genesis side, I'm not really going to go too crazy with a couple of exceptions here and there, but and also the rest of them, you know, we'll look at the other ones too. But yeah, so let's switch to proper footage, shall we? Okay, I just want to show you a quick something. Visual evidence, I suppose. That's the DVD rip of footage that I got from this thing. As you can tell, right off the bat, it has the left channel only has sound, and the right channel does not, which means this thing right here only does mono sound, does not do stereo. An oddity, considering the Sega Genesis, Mega Drive, whatever you want to call it, can do stereo sound just fine. It was a high definition stereo console machine thing, or whatever tagline they used to use, blast processing, that sort of thing. Anyways, I just want to show you that bit. Let's get to some actual gameplay footage.
Alright, so I'm going to level with you here. That opening video that lasted longer than completely necessary, that was recorded back in, what, October, November, and as I'm dubbing this now, it's now April. So I've had to refresh my memory and play a lot of this stuff again. Also, 10 to 12 minutes for that? What's essentially an unboxing? Really? Oof. Explains why I don't do unboxings, because I take a long... anyways, because it's been months between that and now, if I end up repeating anything that's already been said, I apologize in advance. So, and also, the dog is scratching herself somewhat. So, let's look at the AT games. This is your main menu right here, which comprises your 40 Sega Genesis video games and your 40 quote-unquote arcade games. Also, if you have an SD card with some Sega Genesis ROMs in the bin format, you have a separate menu for that, and it looks like so. We're going to sample one of these games. We're going to be playing Outrun 2019, originally for the Sega Genesis, released in 1990X. I'd researched that, but I can't be bothered. So let's listen to the sound here. And right off the bat, you could tell that the sound is a bit lower pitched compared to actual hardware. This is Outrun 2019 being played on the Fire Core. And no, it's not just the ROM. And there's also a bit of like lines on the top left, which wasn't in the original game. Other than that, it plays alright for the most part. You know, colors are kind of different there. But anyways, here's some Outrun 2019 played on an actual Sega Genesis. Mind you, it's a Mark II, but still, it's an actual console and actual hardware, and it's running an actual game cartridge and not one of those EverDrive things. I'm just going to let the clip play for a bit. Oh, sorry. Anyway. Anyways, let's sample some of the games here. I'm not going to be spending like a minute or two on each game. I'm just going to show you like a few seconds of gameplay from each game, and I'll just sort of ramble on the rest of the stuff on this Fire Core's ultimate game player thing. So you got games like Alien Storm, you got Alex Kidd, Altered Beast, you know, nice selection of games here and there. A good chunk of these games you could probably find on the various compilations, like the Sega Genesis Collection, the Sonic Ultimate Genesis Collection, or whatever it's called. Arrow Flash is kind of a nice little surprise. Haven't played this one in its original format. Kind of like to get my hands on the actual cartridge, but it's probably going to cost like a bunch of money. You got Bonanza Brothers, which Haven't spent too much time on, but it seemed like a good game. Which I kind of have the actual cartridge, and kind of an awkward game there. Haven't spent too much time on it. Obviously, you got Columns, which is the archetype, the Sega's answer to Tetris. You got Columns 3, which is the competitive columns that you could put up to 5 players, but not on this thing though. On this thing, you're only stuck with the single player component. And you got Comic Zone, which is a nice little revolutionary. Is that a right word? It's a unique title, with the comic book style. Crackdown, which I didn't spend a whole lot of time on this, obviously. And we got Decap Attack, which thanks for that. Frame skipping and all that. That's a fun little, quirky little platformer.
Oh, you think you're so smart? You think... Get him! Get him! Swim, motherfucker! Swim!
Gee whiz, thanks Mark for that insightful commentary. You got Eat SWAT, you got Eternal Champions, which required a 6-button control pad. And fortunately, you have that with this Fire Core thing, so no problems there. Next up, we got Fatal Labyrinth, which is a labyrinth game. I've seen Marco play this at one point or another. And up next, we got Flicky, that arcade-style game where you have to save all the birds from being stuck in a Sonic the Hedgehog franchise for the rest of their lives. Flicky failed. Spoiler alert. Yeah, Gain Ground, which I couldn't get into. Sorry. You got Golden Axe, which is a Sega classic. You got Golden Axe 2, which I actually kind of prefer. Sorry to say. Yeah, Golden Axe 3, which is Golden Axe. More Golden Axe. Yeah, Kid Chameleon, where you could get a bunch of helmets to turn into a bunch of things with different powers. And Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine, which is a redress of Puyo Puyo. That's what you call it, Puyo Puyo? Yeah. Mega Man The Wily Wars, essentially a 16-bit upgrade of the first 3 NES Mega Man games, along with an additional minigame called Wily Tower, which you could access by clearing the first 3 Mega Man games. You won't be able to access the Wily Tower here because Wily Wars inclusion exposes a major flaw with the Fire Core handheld. You cannot save your progress. You could theoretically save, in-game, but if you reset the game or you turn it off and you pick it again, all your save functions are gone pretty much. And this isn't the flaw with the ROM itself. It pretty much applies to any ROM with a save function. Suffice it to say, there's a very good reason why Sonic 3 isn't part of the package. And in a way, it is a kind of a kick in the balls, but whatever, Anyways, we got Shadow Dancer, The Secret of Shinobi, the sequel to Shinobi. What does that leave Revenge of Shinobi? Anyways, not a bad game, but I prefer this one, Shinobi 3 Return of the Ninja Master. Basically, faster pace, you have more to do, and it's not as much of a kick to the balls as Revenge of Shinobi. At least I don't think. And we got Sonic and Knuckles, aka Sonic 3 Part 2. You got Sonic Spinball. You got Sonic the Hedgehog with its horribly named Hill Green? Here's Sonic the Hedgehog 2 with his horribly named Emerald Hill theme. And then we got Street Fighter 2 Special Champion Edition, which actually plays fairly well with the D-pad and the the 6-button setup. You also got Super Street Fighter 2, which has a few more game modes like a group battle and a tournament mode, even though that's practically useless because the 2 players practically worthless here. One thing of note is that this ROM is actually the Japanese version, as evident by the Japanese text, and you also get the Japanese names for the bosses and stuff. Anyways, so you got Streets of Rage, pretty much the original, the classic, and then you got the significantly better Streets of Rage 2 and its horribly named music. Yeah, that's ear rape right there. And you got Streets of Rage 3, which is not as highly regarded, but still a pretty decent game in my opinion. You got the Ooze, which is a rather kind of an ingenious little game. Takes a little while to get used to, but I don't give this game enough time. Should really give it a go one of these days. And of course you got Vector Man, the underrated classic, or is it underrated? I don't know. But it's a pretty damn good game. And then we've finished off with Vector Man 2. And that does it for the official Sega games. Let's look at the other games on the compilation.
Ooh boy. So as I'm recording this segment of the video, it's May 25th, 2015. So I could easily make the claim this video took me 2 years to make, considering the amounts of brain. But I digress. Okay, we've looked at the Sega Genesis portion of the video. Now we're going to look at the games that nobody cares about, but let's pretend we do for the sake of this video, just to get it out of the way. So we've got air hockey. You notice I clicked on the instructions and it warped me straight to the game. I probably pressed the wrong button at the time, but yeah, you got air hockey. It's air hockey. There's not much to say here. You know, you notice that whenever the game anyone scores, they just reset the board. There's no animation, there's no victory claim. You got this annoying droning music in the background. One of these creatures is not like the other. Pick out the different one and you get it correctly. Or you just, if they're all facing the same direction, you point in the direction they're facing. Relatively straightforward game, pretty boring. You play until the time runs out. And now we have this rather bland looking Bomberman knockoff. And for the most part, it does play like Bomberman. Plays about as well as you expect Bomberman. Kinda, sort of. This one's missing a bit of personality. Yeah, it's a poor man's Bomberman. Let's just say. It's not much to say there. You get power-ups at least. What we have here is a racing game with an interesting, or rather unique premise at least. Instead of cars or bikes or anything of the sort, you're controlling these disc things or balls or something like that. Anyways, you control this blue thing, you aim your shot, you determine the power required to travel the distance, and you basically you guide your thing around the board, and the first person to get their piece to the finish line wins. Not that great of a game, to be honest with you. But this one is kind of interesting. If only because it reminds me of the old DOS game Scorched Earth, which is sort of built on a similar premise. The idea is that you're lobbing cannonballs against your opponent on the other side of the this crevice here, and you basically have to determine the power and the trajectory to lob your cannonball to the other side while fighting against the current, which has a tendency to shift every so often. Anyways, it's a pretty straightforward game. Yeah, and you lose right there. Next up, we have a variant of checkers that I am completely unfamiliar with. So I can't tell you a whole lot about this one because I have no idea how to play it. Sorry. But here's a game that I am somewhat familiar with, and that's chess. This is pretty much straightforward chess. Not exactly the greatest version of chess in video game form, but it does get the job done. So, next up we have Color Puzzle, and the idea is to match the meaning on the left can with the color of the word on the right can. So if it says blue on the left and the word on the right is blue, you say yes, otherwise you say no. It's a relatively straightforward affair for the most part, and again, much like many of these games, not an exciting premise. Next up, we have a Frogger ripoff where you guide your little mans from the bottom of the street to the top of the street. It plays pretty much like Frogger, except with a gruesome death that I did not record during this recording, and I'd much rather be playing Frogger, quite frankly. So, next up, we have a game that's mistakenly called Curling, but it's more like a Famicom game that I've played whose name escapes me at the moment. The idea is that you're tossing balls at each other, and whoever clears their side of balls wins. You could use the balls to stun your opponent and vice versa, and it's not that bad of a game actually. It's a fun little game, plays rather well, makes for a great two-player game if the capability existed, but it doesn't, so you're playing against a computer, and unfortunately that gets boring after a while, but hey, one halfway decent game at least. This game's fairly straightforward. Pick the color that has the most colored hearts, and yeah, this doesn't hold my attention for very long. So here we got a variant of chess where you play the horse head and you move by horse head rules and you have to kill all the pawns before they hit the bottom. This did not hold my interest for very long. I'd much rather be playing regular chess. Next up we have this Simon game where it's basically Simon, you follow the pattern and you repeat it. Not much to it there. So here's a game where you control a yellow, moderate-sized yellow fish. You eat all the little blue fish and you try to avoid all the big fish before they, anyways. Not that great of a game, to be honest with you. Here's a game where you memorize the numerical order and you pick the stars in ascending order. So the first star is 6 and the last star is 9. Well, it's another one of those memory games. And here's a number of math where you basically come on. You determine whether one number is less than or greater than or equals to the other. Come on. It's math. This game I'm guessing you have to fill the board or something, and whoever fills the board wins, I suppose. This one you're climbing platforms and you land on the platforms. You try not to miss the platforms or else you'll fall on your ass into the abyss below. Yeah, I got nothing. Hey, how about some Jewel Magic, the popular ripoff of Columns, on a system that already has 2 official versions of Columns already? A waste of time and space. We got one of those rotating tile puzzles that I don't care for, and we got a card game of some kind, and we got Mahjong, and a matching tile type of, and you could tell I lost any and all interest in trying to be informative. Oh goody, another memory game. This time you determine whether the card on the right matches up with the card on the left that you just saw a short while ago. Yeah, the appeal was lost. This is the infamous Mr. Balls, where I'm guessing you have to clear the board of Mr. Balls, and I don't know. This gives me a headache. Next up, we have Battleship, or at least a poor man knockoff of Battleship, where you know how to play Battleship. It's a classic board game. You sunk my battleship and all that. They made a movie based on Battleship. I haven't seen it. Apparently it has Liam Neeson in it. Totally irrelevant to this video. Anyways, you're operating the elevator and you basically have to stop on the floors that they tell you to stop on. So you just press the A button and boring. Another memory game. What matches, what doesn't match? Who cares? It's fucking Snake. You've played this already. Let's skip this shit. Another, find a UFO. Oh, crap. This one's not so bad. You swat all the insects that go down. You protect your cake. This is actually not that bad of a game, actually. It's not great. It's not fantastic, but yeah, like many games that isn't an officially licensed Sega Genesis game, gets boring after a while. Sudoku! Sure, that's exactly what I need, is to play Sudoku with a fucking D-pad. Just stick with the paper version or whatever's on the DS or 3DS or tablet or whatever. You're guiding your ship to the treasure, you're trying to avoid the squares with the traps and all that. And yeah, I got nothing. So now you got this block pushing thing that. Is it over yet? Is the come on? And finally we got Whack-A-Cat, where you whack a cat. Try not to whack the little Red Riding helmet thing. And those are all the games that nobody cares about, but we're gonna go through this because we gotta be a completionist or something. Okay, let's get this over with. Concluding thoughts in 3, 2, 1.
So it's what are we today? The 22nd of July, 2015. Yeah, 2 months after last dubbing. So this is something that was 2 years in the making. Excuse me. Because the earliest footage was about 2 years ago, or close to it. So, yeah, this was a thing that exists, and, you know, for what I use it for, it's okay, you know. Hardware-wise, you know, the D-pad's has a tendency to stick at times, but it's not that bad. You know, it has all your 6 buttons, your menu, and your start button. And you got your headphone jack, your power button, and you know, your SD card for if you want to put in some ROMs, your AV out, and you use USB so you can plug the cable in and charge your battery. The volume control there, pretty standard stuff. And the games play relatively well for the most part. You know, there's a bit of a crunch when it comes to like the resolution, but it's not bad. The only thing being, you know, the sound quality is kind of shit. It's off key, which might be a turnoff for some people. For me, it's not really that big of a deal. I'm going to be playing this on the go anyway, so, and usually the volume's all the way down, so that doesn't really bother me. There's certain ROM types this thing won't play. And the one big thing, though, the one that really killed the deal for me was the lack of ability to save your games, which don't apply with a lot of these games, because most of these games, you know, don't have a save feature, but it hurts with Wily Wars, because that has a save function. And yeah, it kind of renders that game moot, since you can't save your progress there. Not even with it's obviously there's no save state or battery backup emulation type of thing. There's no save state. It's not that sophisticated. You know, not much else I could say. I kind of think, you know, personally speaking, you know, if they spent a little more time trying to get the sound emulation right, and ditch the 40 worthless games, and, you know, use the space for something a little better, or, I don't know, maybe more games or something worthwhile, it would have been something. You know, I guess if you're like, you're more of a purist and you have to have the original hardware and all that, there's the Nomad. That's a thing that happens. Although, this thing is significantly lighter than a Nomad, and lasts a little longer. I'm guessing, though, because I've never really had a Nomad on hand. Never really seen one outside of pictures and videos and stuff. But yeah, I'm just sort of rambling at this point. Yeah, so this is like, you know, the ultimate portable game player, the Fire Core thing. I wouldn't go that far, but yeah, it's a nice little gimmick, I guess. Probably for some people, that for something, you know, for a cheapo pickup, that, you know, just a quick little gimmick. You know, easy access to some classic Genesis games and some not so classic games. It's all right, I guess. So, yeah, I got nothing. So, that's going to do it for me. So, thank you all for watching. Until next time, take care. Good night. We're going to play a bit of Sonic 2, I guess, to close things out. Emerald Hill Zone. There we go. Actually, on second thought, I'll just stick with the Genesis version. Good night.